Daniel. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into, firstly, yourself and your company. So, what inspired you to start your company?
Well, thanks for having me. It's a really good question. I guess to take you back, where it all started for me and my why started around a few years ago when I was supporting someone who was going through a challenging period with their own mental health. And at the time, back in the day, I didn't have the skills or knowledge or experience to know if I was doing the right thing, know what to say, know what to do. I was just sort of winging it at the time, and this person was really struggling. And so, if I'd have had the skills that I have now back then, it wouldn't have made everything better, but it sure as hell would have helped at the time and, at least been beneficial in some way to point me in the right direction. And so now this person's now my wife, so I must have done something right at the time. But, it was really scary for me and for her because it's like, well, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what else can I do? Where can I go for help? And so my why started probably based off that. And then I've had my own sort of lived experience of, mental health problems as well. And so I guess why I started my business was really, I'm passionate about providing education around mental health, but educating other people and empowering other people on how to have a conversation, how to support someone, how to show up for their mates, not to be perfect, but at least feel confident in knowing what questions to ask, or at least being confident to lean in and have the conversation in the first place, and then give them ideas around where they can go for help. And so that's sort of why we do what we do, because I get people coming in the training and all the education I do, and they're not really confident. They walk away going, I've got so much more tools and I feel more confident at least leaning in the first place. And that's what it's all about. It's not being perfect. So in a nutshell, that's my why I do what I do and why I started my business.
And you somewhat answered in that, but
Sure.
I will ask, who are your key clients or key people that your business serves, being Pharus Wellbeing, and what needs of theirs do you address?
It's a good question. Seeing my business is not new, but it's been going for a little while. It's a hard one because my business can help everybody, and it's like shotgun approach. We can help everyone. However, where I am passionate about supporting is those male-dominated industries, purely because, educating blokes and males on and stripping away some of that stigma and changing attitudes around mental health and everything like that. When we run our trainings and you see people walk away with a completely different attitude and things like that, I'm really passionate about that. And there is still that sort of discrimination and stigma around that. It's getting there. So I would say male-dominated industries is what I try and focus on. I've also got a background in healthcare, so I love supporting frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors. I'm really passionate in that space too. So, yeah, key clients of mine at the moment are typically them, or those medium-sized businesses, smaller type businesses as well. So key clientele, them. Now, I guess if you're asking what are the challenges or what am I focusing on with them, is a lot of the time I try and focus on the leaders and the people managers. And although we train up everybody and we educate everyone, leaders and managers are a lot of the time the people we're training, because more often than not, they're the ones that have to have the conversation with their staff. And I only focus purely on organisations. I don't do community, public, come and do some training. I'll focus on supporting organisations. So leaders and managers, because at the end of the day, they're the first people that, if someone's struggling, they're coming to as a staff member. And you need these skills because you're managing human beings. You're not managing numbers and you're not managing a product. You're managing people. And so these are skills that anyone can learn. So a lot of the time them, but any staff can be trained in it for sure.
Perfect. And what sets Pharus Wellbeing apart from others in your field? What is your niche, or what's your blank space there?
Good question. First thing I think for me, compared to maybe other organisations or companies or people, is I guess I'd like to still classify myself as young enough. So, mid-30s bloke, willing to talk about mental health. There's not many of us in that sort of space. There is a lot of other types of trainers organisations who are very corporate style, and they're all focusing on workplace well-being or there's someone who's really experienced in training, but they're 50, 60-year-old guys, females, males, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're fantastic trainers. But when you're trying to go out to male-dominated industries and you're trying to focus on the younger generation, unfortunately, sometimes when someone goes out who may be a bit older or not perfectly aligned to that industry, you get the eye rolls, you get the people going, why am I here? What am I doing? And that's not really how we change the attitudes. So I'd say probably one, I'm a guy, young enough, still willing to talk about mental health and talk about my own journey. So a little bit of that probably, and probably my teaching background initially. So I know how training should be run. I know how education packages should be offered, and knowing that death by PowerPoint is not the way to go about it. So yeah, probably that.
Really? No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Um,
it's the worst thing in the world is that. So word vomiting to a screen is the worst thing you can do. So I'm all about interaction and getting people to practice and learn and take tools away. So yeah, a lot of that.
it's definitely something I think the younger generation needs is that interaction. The attention span is very small these days.
Like how
How
my
do
attention's that small too at times, right? So
yeah.
we need that.
How do you ensure that the quality of your services meets your customer expectations?
Oh, good question. How would I know my quality meets it? Well, a lot of the time we assess and we evaluate, and there's evaluations from that, and so we're always reflecting on that. So a lot of the trainings participants at the end of the training can go through that evaluation and say, where what they've learned and how the training was, and provide that feedback. And so that's really important because you need to know if you're on the right track. You need to know if you're hitting the mark. You need to be chatting with your clients afterwards to find out, hey, was that what you wanted? Is this beneficial? Do you see benefit in it? So probably that. But from a business perspective, I get a lot of repeat clients. And so when you get repeat clients, you know that something's working because they're coming back for more, and you're getting them saying this was great, now everyone in the organization needs to be trained in this, and then they become passionate advocates as well. So they're probably a couple of the ways really from what I do around finding out if you hit the mark or not.
All right. Now, looking at employment, what qualities and skills do you generally look for when you are hiring an employee?
I recently had to do this, but not for a full-time employee. It was someone to sort of help on a contracting
Mhm.
basis. And I'm going to take the words from one of the best managers I've ever had in my life in a previous employer. And he says he hires people first because skills can be taught. And so I sort of live by that motto as well. I want to find good people, good human beings who want to help others, who can communicate, support each other, like all of that, because that's what creates a great organizational culture. But that's what everyone thrives in that. And that's people want to show up to work. The skills and the little intricacies and the nitty gritties of a job and things like that, they can be taught. They can always be taught. What's harder to teach is people skills. And so really it's for my business, and my entire values are around integrity, care, like all of those people skills. I would take them in a heartbeat over anyone who absolutely knows their role in and out, but can't have a conversation or can't check in on someone else or make sure or work in a team. Yeah. So human being skills first and then technical skills after.
Which, again, I think in this day and age is dwindling human skills.
Unfortunately, for some organizations, when people get hired, they're really good at their job, or they then get hired to go into that managerial role because they've been so good at their job, but they haven't been taught how to actually manage human beings or how to actually support human beings. They've just been very good at their technical role. And so some of those other skills you're learning are really, really important if people ever have a desire to move up the ranks and get that increased pay packet or whatever it is, that better
Mm.
career. Yeah, for sure.
And not just that, I think in line with obviously the education that you deliver, it's having those hard conversations. It's talking about things that generally would make most people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And if you don't already have those people skills, it's very hard to have that conversation. So I can
Yep.
see that. Yeah.
100%. And a lot of the time, if they're not confident or at least willing to have the conversation, they shy away. And then, a staff member's looking at a colleague going, well, they're treating me differently. They're not respecting me as a human being. And then things can just get worse from there. And so, yeah, for people looking into careers and employment, like, yeah, you need the technical skills, but honestly, build the human being skills because they're going to take you a lot further.
Now, in line with that,
Mhm.
you can't necessarily show your people skills on a resume. So, what advice would you give somebody that is preparing their resume and or applying for a position with Pharus Wellbeing?
It's, I guess, if you're looking at specific job titles and job experience, yeah, it could be hard, but it's what else have you done? What else have you done in your learning or your study or, community service or volunteering, or you've done additional training such as my type of training or leadership training or some sort of additional skills there to because that can stand out on a resume to show that, yeah, you've actually, and it might not be you're the best at it, but at least you've actually given a crap and you've tried as well. So I used to be a recruiter back in my day, and we used to get resumes side by side, and it was things like, how long have they stuck in an organization for? Have they chopped and changed every 6 months to a year for a different employee, compared to have they stuck it out? Have they been involved in organisations or charity work or volunteering or whatever they've done for a long period of time? That shows commitment, and then organisations going to look at that and go, well, this person might be willing to stick around, where the other one might only be around for a year and then they're going to be gone. So why would I hire them? So it's those types of things, the small little bits and pieces that can really complement someone when they're trying to find employment.
Now, future trends of the industry. How do you see your industry evolving? Let's just say in the next 3 years. I feel like 5 is too far away.
Well, in my space, in mental health, I'm in Queensland, so currently there's now what they call psychosocial safety laws around, which are implemented. So organisations have a duty of care to create mentally healthy workplaces, just like they would with the physical health. So all the other states are catching up as well. So trends, what's coming out now is there's a lot of focus on mental health supports, but for organisations, it's focusing on, okay, well, how are we looking after our staff? What are we doing for our staff? How can we keep our staff mentally healthy as well as physically safe and mentally safe? So trends that I would be saying is there's a lot more focus on well-being, and not just organizations offering a phone number to staff to be like, here's the support, but it's actually like organizations that focus on thriving workplaces and building culture and all of that. That's what people are looking for in jobs now, not just the salary. They're looking at, what kind of organization can they work in? So those are the trends that we're starting to see, is a lot more focus on that. Staff going, well, why would I work at your organization? Not here's a phone number, not here's the salary, but it's what do they get out of it too?
Yeah, I think you're bang on. I feel like there is that shift towards the well-being of the human being. Like most of the time we are at work, right? So you might as well be mentally stable at work.
Thank COVID for that one.
Yeah.
COVID lit the fire, because what it turned out to be is the industry went from like organizations hiring people to then people leaving their roles all the time and asking the why. Why am I in this role? Why would I do that? So it flipped. So a lot of the time people were going to a better job. So then organizations were like, crap, we actually have to focus on retaining staff and making our organization great so people either stay or want to come to us, because it's getting harder and harder to find people.
And again, retention is hard. Like you're talking about, your resumes and sort of looking at how long they've been in a position, but retention of, feel like maybe the generation under you and I holding those guys in the same job for longer than, I reckon, 2 or 3 years is extremely hard. So it's what can the company do for them, for their well-being mentally and usually dollar-wise as well.
Yep. And it costs money. It costs money to hire someone, right? And every time you have to hire and fire and find someone else, it costs money and time and extra demands on other people.
What role do you believe? Now we can talk about yourself as an education provider and also the college as an education provider, but role do you think education providers should play in preparing the future workforce, or in your case, looking at your team leaders, looking at your organizations?
So what role do we play? Well, honestly, we're both in the similar industries from the education. Like, it always comes down to education. It always comes down to that. Like, whether it's educating people, giving them skills to be employable, or educating them to give them the people skills so then they stand out compared to others. But education's the biggest part. So if people can increase their knowledge in whatever area they can, it's going to take them a lot further. And it's going to, or it might not take them a lot further, but it's going to, allow them to feel more comfortable or more confident when maybe going for a job or going for that promotion So I guess you hit the nail on the head before. It's about the education perspective, but it's what have they done to upskill themselves, or what can they do, and how can they continue to evolve and educate themselves and equip themselves with more skills as well.
Adding value.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Daniel, thank you for joining me. Your business, your Pharus Wellbeing, it sounds like you definitely have a very successful niche market in what you're doing. And I think you're definitely hitting the nail on the head, focusing on a specifically male mental health as well and young males, because we all know they're sort of falling through the cracks at the moment. So thank you so much for joining me. And if ever you need anything, let me know. But no, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very constructive conversation, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.
No worries, Emma. Happy to chat anytime. So, yeah, thank you.